We got this question from social media recently, and it's very interesting. So I'd love to have your take on it. It's a woman wondering if it's okay to do surrogacy or use a surrogate for your own leftover embryos, assuming there's some medical actual reason you cannot carry the children, or is it better to adopt them out? What do you think?
Yeah, so I know of a situation where a woman who was Christian, incredibly pro life, created 5 embryos, had the absolute conviction that she was going to implant all 5 of them. And then what happened is, after her first pregnancy, she had cancer and she had to have a hysterectomy. So now she's got 4 embryos that are left, and she loves those children. She recognizes that they are little lives. But what do you do now? I mean, the options in any direction are going to involve some level of loss for the children. Either she freezes them perpetually, or she donates them to research, or she thaws them and discards them. And this is something that she was not comfortable with at all, because she recognized these are little lives. So that's unacceptable. So now what are the other options? She can either adopt the embryos out so that somebody can implant them in their womb and then raise them through adulthood. But in those situations, the child is going to lose that daily connection with their biological mother and father. So another option is she could gestate the embryos in another woman's womb and then have a probably commercial arrangement where she would pay the woman to hand over the children to her so that she could raise her own biological children. But now you've got children who are experiencing that primal wound, that interruption of that bond between mother and child that has developed over the course of 9 months. And so it's almost like pick your brokenness. At this point, you just have to pick what kind of brokenness the children are going to experience, either the brokenness of being separated from their biological parents or the brokenness of losing their birth mother. So I don't know how to evaluate which of those is better and which of those is worse, but I will say that this is why at Them Before Us, we don't think embryos should ever be frozen, because very often, even if the adults have the best intentions, when a child goes into the freezer, there are all kinds of things that will make sure they never come out. And this woman has faced, and I think our questioner has faced, one of the most crippling scenarios where they've learned that to be, unfortunately, very true.
Yeah, it seems okay. So if we think about the ideal for a child is to be raised by their biological mother and father so they don't lose that genetic connection, their biological identity. Some people could probably argue if you used a surrogate and then you brought the child back into your home, at least they would have that. So it does seem like in an impossible scenario, that might be one of the better options versus being adopted, even if it was to someone you knew, but then they're being raised without you, or do you do an open adoption scenario and all these kinds of things. But like you're saying, if you go the surrogate route, you are setting your child back in terms of attachment right from the beginning because they're going to lose that one security they've had right at birth. And even though they're handed to their genetic parents, they don't know that you're their genetic parents. All they know is the person I knew for 9 months is not here anymore. So when they're crying out in the middle of the night, that's the person they want. So it is a really impossible situation. It kind of shows too, these are the unintended consequences of this whole industry, right? There's so many things we can't account for. She didn't know she was going to lose her uterus, and that wasn't her fault. But getting sucked into these practices or the industry means you're making these life and death decisions maybe humans weren't really supposed to be making.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this dystopic choice kind of points towards why these technologies should be avoided altogether.